Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Book Review Blog. I'm your book reviewer, and today we're going to read the book New Moon, or do a review of it. This is kind of in the continuation of if you've been living under a rock for 6 years, or living in a cave for 6 years, because obviously the Twilight series is a very popular series, and I've read the first book, Twilight, and done a review, so now I'm going to do a review of the second one. Of the four books that I've already read the series, and of the four books, I would have to say that New Moon is probably my least favorite. When I first read it, and I will go into detail for that in a second, but I'm very glad that I reread it because some parts that I didn't understand I kind of a little further I understand a little more, and that's also helped to watching the movie as well. So yay! So the book starts with the same characters, Bella Swan, and she's in love with a vampire named Edward Cullen. And when the book begins, it's her birthday, and she's now 18, and she's all gloomy about it because now she's technically older than Edward, sort of, because Edward was 17 when he became a vampire, so she's all mad now that she's older, even though technically Edward is like 108. Anyway, but so the book begins with with her birthday, and the Cullens have a birthday party for her, and she receives a number of gifts, and she's getting ready to open a gift when Klutzy Her gets a paper cut on her finger, and she's in a room full of vampires, and she drops one blood drop on the floor, and Jasper, Edward's brother, who is the Cullen who has been with them the least amount of time, so he is not used to their diet of just animals, and he's been eating humans a lot longer than they all have before he joined the Cullens. He has a little trouble controlling himself around Bella, and this drop of blood causes him to almost attack Bella, and through swift movements, as you know in the movie, if you've seen it, Edward throws Bella off and throws her against the wall, which causes her to bleed more, which I thought was kind of strange. But it's all taken care of. Nobody attacks her or bites her. And while she's there, Carlisle is cleaning her up, and he and Edward both talk about this family of vampires that live in Italy called the Volturi. And Edward describes it as kind of the royal family of vampires. They are kind of the lawmakers, and that's kind of what they talk about for a little bit. And they don't talk very much about it at that time, but the book, this is kind of where the book and the movie are a little different. The book goes on a couple more days, maybe like a week or so after this party, and where Bella and Edward are going to school, and Bella is realizing and noticing that Edward is a little different, or he seems different, that he seems more distant and than he usually is, and she's very worried about it and very anxious about it. But the movie just kind of ends up as it happens a day, but they just speed things along in the movie. So anyway, Edward says that they are going to leave Forks, he meaning the Cullens, and they have to leave Bella behind. And Bella is very put off by this, obviously, and she follows him around all through the forest, and then she collapses, and then finally she finds herself being carried or woken up by a member of the Quillette tribe. I think that's how it's called. This is a tribe that her friend Jacob Black is part of. The man who rescues her and finds her is a man named Sam Uli, and um, and then just again you kind of see it from the movie, but it then just kind of spirals into it goes from October, November, December, and January, and it's just like pages of this. Not that, and that's all it says on pages. So, and you can, if you're familiar with the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And then she just kind of goes on to this spiral of just not there. She just doesn't care anymore, and that's the one of the parts that I don't like about this book is that okay, I understand you're a teenager and you just lost your boyfriend or your boyfriend has just left, and you know, of course it's under immediate or you know unusual circumstances, and of course you're a teenager again, and so everything is dramatic, but get over it. And her father is very worried, and so he wants to send her to Jacksonville, but she doesn't want to go, and so she has to kind of develop think that she's going to develop more friends to satisfy her dad, and because her friends that are going to her school have just kind of abandoned her, or she's more abandoned them, to hang out with Edward. And I must say that in the movie when she and Jessica have the dinner or the movie date, and she goes off to the she's walking along and she goes off to kind of the bar with a motorcyclist. That doesn't happen in the book. One of the things that Edward tells her before he leaves is for Bella not to do anything reckless and not to do anything stupid. And so Bella just kind of half-heartedly agrees because she's kind of distraught that he's leaving again. But in the book, she just kind of goes off and talks to these guys. But when she's doing that, she hears Edward's voice in her head and saying, "Don't do this, walk away, this is stupid." And so she realizes that this is actually a good, that she wants to hear his voice, and that she continues to do reckless and stupid things. And one of the things that she does, or she starts hanging out with her friend Jacob again, because just to make her dad happy, and along the lines of hanging out with him, and because he's redoing a car, so she's like, okay, you're really mechanical, you know how to operate and how to fix things. So she ends up finding a couple motorcycles that she knows this is way against my dad's rules, he will never go with this, but it's reckless and stupid, so let's do it, just so I can see Edward again. And so she basically uses Jacob to fix these bikes, and they do, and while they're doing that, which is a couple month process, Jacob and Bella become more friendly, and Jacob wants it to go further and be his girlfriend, have Bella be his girlfriend, but Bella is still like gloom and doom and doesn't see that Jacob wants her to be more than just friends, or she says, I this is all I want. So but you also meet more people from Jacob's tribe, and you meet his friends Quill and Embry, and again you met Sam, and then throughout, Jacob, Bella, and a couple friends from school all go to a movie, and it ends up being just Jacob, Bella, and Mike Newton all go to this movie, and Jacob is very defensive and very just put off that Mike is there, and both Mike and Jacob fall ill like kind of everybody else in the school, because there's a bug going around, but Jacob is gone for many days, and he Bella is very worried about it, and she's very worried about him, and so she goes and sees him, and he is all alone, and he's like, don't come near me, don't talk to me anymore. And so again, she's just really standoffish, and she's just very shocked that he's treating her this way. And so again, another friend has deserted her, and again, it's all gloom and doom. But it ends up being that Jacob, that she remembers things that Jacob told her that happened in the first Twilight book, about how his tribe was descended from wolves. And she kind of figures out that he's a werewolf. And all his friends are now werewolves. And because along with that, there's been some sightings that people have said of big, what they call bears, but they're wolves. And and so that just kind of happens, and she's just now taken with another group of supernatural people. But along with them being werewolves, they're like, well, the reason that we're changing into werewolves is because there are vampires around. And she's like, well, no, the Cullens have left, so those aren't the threat to you. But with the Cullens being gone, there are still Victoria from the first book and Laurent from this first book. And what happens is Laurent finds Bella and tries to kill her on behalf of Victoria, or doing a favor for Victoria, but the werewolves find her and him and end up killing Laurent. So he's dead. So, but there's, and then finally, Bella decides to do one more reckless and stupid thing, and she ends up going cliff diving, that she and Jacob were supposed to do together, but she decides to do it on her own because Jacob isn't there. And so she jumps off a cliff and to do cliff diving for recreation, and she doesn't see anything in the water, but in the movie they say that she does, but she doesn't in the book. And the same time that Bella is jumping off the cliff, a family friend of Charlie and Bella's and Jacob's has died. His name was Harry Clearwater, and so Charlie is very distraught because his friend has died, and but Bella jumping off the cliff has awakened something in Alice Cullen. So, because she can see in the future, and she sees Bella jumping, and so she thinks that Bella has committed suicide. And so she rushes to Bella's house to be with Charlie, but sees Bella. And so they have a nice reunion, but Alice says that Edward doesn't know that she's there, and that he doesn't know that Bella has done this, but Alice has told other members of her family, and Edward checks in with his family, and I believe it's Rosalie who tells him that Bella has killed herself, or has committed suicide, and he calls home to check on Charlie, or calls Bella to check on Charlie, and Jacob ends up answering, and the conversation that you get from the book and from the movie is that you just hear Jacob's end of, no, he's not here, he's preparing, and preparing for a funeral. And Jacob means that Charlie is preparing for Harry Clearwater's funeral, but what Edward assumes is that he is preparing for Bella's funeral. So that means that he is now going to provoke this Volturi to end Edward's life, because as part of the royal family they can do that. And so now Alice and Bella are very worried and try to stop Edward, which means flying to Italy on, a moment's notice. And you could probably know from the Volturi scene for me was one of the reasons why I didn't like the book at the beginning, because it was very hard to understand. But now rereading it, I did understand it more. And again, if you haven't read it, I won't spoil it, but those who have know kind of what happens or has kind of guessed. But I did like kind of the other powers that the Volturi had, where Jane had the power to produce pain, and Aro, the kind of the head or one of the heads, had the ability to see every thought that you had. So I thought that was kind of cool. So anyway, that's it. My next review that I'm going to do is of the review of The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, in time for the movie that's coming out. So I'm going to do that next, and I bid you all a farewell and happy reading.